Oh my god, who the hell cares?
I have crippling depression.
When the staff lists came out for this month of Super, this episode was the one to really look forward to. Not only did it mark the return of Naoki Tate, the animator and supervisor who last blew us all away in the second half of the special, really giving Ultra Instinct's debut some unique and memorable movement, it also brought about the return of MASATO Mitsuka, the director of the aforementioned episode and one of Super's absolute best. An animator capable of conveying great impact and a director capable of bringing it all together. Two universes that we've had characterization for being erased. On paper, this should have been the perfect episode, and it's not. It's very much an episode of two halves, but it's certainly up there as one of the strongest episodes of this tournament anyway. So let's jump in with that first half, which is undeniably the weaker of the two. It comes from Toei Animation Philippines, Joey Kalangian and Noel Año Nuevo being the two supervisors here. Their presence is honestly pretty minimal. While you can spot them in some close-ups throughout a few scenes, the chief animation supervisor, MIYAKO TSUJI, has pretty much put her entire focus on this first half. The vast majority of scenes here feature her redraws, and I'm actually pretty happy with her work here. I've mentioned across a few recent videos that TSUJI's style has started devolving a little after such strong output in the Future Trunks arc. This episode definitely feels like a pretty reasonable return to form. Some of the shots of Goku look absolutely gorgeous. They look like they're drawn with real confidence, and the shading definitely backs that up. It's a stark contrast to her rather rough output only a few episodes ago. This tournament's certainly tough on the chief supervisors, so I can't complain too much, but with Ide really strutting his stuff, it'd be nice to have both of them at a consistent level. The major sequences in this first half are actually the ones that let it down the most. This half is packed with reused or repurposed animation to the point that it was actually really distracting. I honestly haven't been this pulled out of an episode by reused scenes since the first two episodes. Tate's Gohan vs Obuni was reused, with him redrawing Obuni as Saonel. Piccolo's Hell Zone grenade was repurposed. Higashide's 18 cut from episode 99 is recycled. Muma's work from episode 112 was reused and touched up by Tate. Huge chunks of Mitsuka's storyboard from 102 were thrown in too. They also went all the way back to episode 88 and reused Piccolo's training scene with Gohan. The only new scene that really stood out to me was the scuffle between Piccolo and Pirina. I really like the extreme smears on the impacts, and of course that shading is gorgeous. Not sure who pulled that off, but they did a great job. As far as reused scenes go, it's a little depressing to have so much recycled content on an episode that's of great importance like this. I can certainly forgive the parallels to episode 102 since that works as part of the magical boys gag, but the action scenes were just too much. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation. The alternative are some presumably poor scenes from Toei Animation Philippines, so this is certainly better than nothing, but with many of these cuts coming from episodes in the past few weeks, it's quite hard to push them out of your mind. As much as I'm going on about this, I have to say I'm not that upset. In the grand scheme of not only the episode but this tournament as a whole, it's a pretty minor setback that I appreciate occurs to allow this tournament to even exist at the quality it does right now. Since Dragon Ball Super's special, the series has been on a real roll as far as its production goes. It's looking incredibly good for a weekly battle shonen, far beyond my expectations. Not only was the special pretty remarkable, but episode 112 allowed for Miyuma to produce scenes with his gorgeous effects on full display. Episode 113 showed us that yong-ce is great when it comes to scenes that require powerful imagery. 114 gave us Takahashi, whose work doesn't even need a description. 116 reminded us that Higashide is one of the best, and we got a great little surprise from Kenotsuka. 117 should have been a nothing Yashima episode, but Ryo Onoshi appeared and gave us an amazing farewell to Brienne. The series is on fire right now, and as we move into the second half of this episode, that streak continues in full force. The half begins with a lovely scene from OSAMU Ishikawa where Nail and God appear before Piccolo. Ishikawa's a great artist, so there are no complaints there. The real strength of this scene is in MITSUKA's storyboard and direction. This is such a lovely way of honouring the series lore, and the role reversal of Piccolo stepping in front of Gohan back in the Saiyan arc is a really powerful way of finishing up the master-pupil plotline that's been running through this arc. This follows up with the first of Tate's contributions in this episode, and holy hell is it powerful. Gohan's punch onto Saonel carries so much weight. I really love how his head turns into a smear on the impact. As they fly up into the air, the seamless transition into the rotation as Pirina joins the fight is seriously impressive. Major props go to Tate and MITSUKA for the storyboard and layouts here. Saonel joining back into the fight once again hammers home something I've been pointing out for weeks. Characters moving in and out of fights within a single cut is the best way of showcasing the format of this tournament. Following the scene, we head over to yong-ce and OSAMU Ishikawa ping-ponging cuts back and forth between one another. Ishikawa handles many of the stills as Goku defends himself from one of the magical boys, and yes, I'm sticking with that name. As the action kicks in, Chu takes over, and much like the last scene, it features multiple characters bouncing in and out of the frame. Chu's contributions continue as the magical boys begin to create the Black Heart, and 17 blocks it with his barrier. Once again, you can see those same lightning effects that he's become quite fond of over the past few months. Like the last time they appeared, they matched the first time they really stood out in the Super Saiyan 3 scene in 113. The Black Heart itself pinging around comes from Naoki Tate. It's so nicely done. I really love morphing effects like that. It offers so much freedom when it comes to squash and stretch. The next big scene is of course the series of Kamehamehas, and unfortunately for me, this is where it gets very confusing as far as identifying animators goes. I asked yong-ce exactly what he did on this episode, and aside from the stuff I mentioned, which he clarified very specifically, he vaguely said he did the bit before Tate's part. Considering the bits before Tate's other parts are from Ishikawa, the only thing left over is Goku's Kamehameha, which comes before what looks to be Tate's Gohan scene. Either way, they look fantastic. I love how creative the storyboard is here. Saonel reaching around the beam and coming through with one hell of an expression is amazing, especially as the camera then seamlessly pans up from Gohan and onto Piccolo. That's such incredible camera work. Again, MITSUKA is just a phenomenal director. That essentially wraps up the action though. You can find Ishikawa towards the end, and again in amongst some other styles throughout the episode that are likely from the few other animators on board here. This was a pretty small staff list as far as in-house Toei goes, which would explain the reused animation and heavy reliance on Toei Animation Philippines. Before we wrap things up, I have to once again point out the background art. Bunsun Lee is far and away Super's strongest art director. The details in his backgrounds are outstanding, and the choice of colours do such a good job of creating atmosphere. I pointed this out in the contrast between Takahashi's episode and the one that followed it, 114 and 115, and once again you can see it here compared to the episode before. There's depth to the imagery, and again that atmosphere is just night and day, almost literally. It's nice to see all of Super's best come together for single episodes. On the whole, this episode did just about live up to my expectations. Like I said, no, it certainly wasn't as perfect as it sounded on paper, but as far as delivering a great looking fight and actually making me feel something as two universes were erased, it certainly did its job. Next week is half outsourced once again, this time from Tsutomu Ono and his team. We're seeing the return of Yasuhiro Namatame, who we last saw in episode 111. I wasn't hugely impressed by his last efforts, and the NEP doesn't exactly fill me with hope, but I'm cautiously optimistic all the same. Ono's team is definitely capable of producing good work, and with regards to Toei's team, we haven't seen Kenji Miyuma for a while. There is a lot of potential as far as animation goes. But that is it for this week, unless there's some groundbreaking revelations in the upcoming issue of AnimeAjay. It seems the return of Yuya Takahashi will be the big episode to look forward to in the next month's worth of episodes. For all the details on that, be sure to check out my video from this morning. Let me know how you enjoyed this episode. Did it live up to your expectations? Were the universe erasures handled as you liked? What are your hopes for next week? Be sure to rate the video, subscribe if you're new, and of course, I will see you next time.